I'm Mike Costello, and I'd like to talk to you in the next few minutes about the power of the now. Living in the present moment is one of the most freeing thoughts and experiences that we can have. Whenever we live in the past or live in the future, we step out of the present moment. And when we step out of the present moment, we sacrifice a tremendous amount of awareness. It's been said that we live in our minds and not in the world, and we believe that with every fiber of our being. It is a fundamental teaching in New Thought. And if we live in our minds, then where we dwell in our minds determines the quality and the fiber of our lives. If we live in the past and if we live in the future, we step out of this moment and we miss all of the experiences that take place. So often in our life experience, we look back and we say, where did the years go? Where did the time go? Where did the experience go? And in reality, we were in the midst of every single experience. But so often, when we're in the midst of life experiences, we step out of the experience, we step into the past, or we step into the future. So often when we're driving our cars in an unconscious or a semi-conscious way. When we're listening to people, often we are semi-conscious or unconscious. By this, I mean we're thinking about somewhere else. We're thinking about something that's happened in the past or something that's going to happen in the future. We live in very exciting times. There are myriads of technology that bring us all kinds of comfort. We're able to move from place to place so easily. Life is so fascinating and wonderful. But sometimes life creates for us, and the experiences of our life seem for us to be a burden. And we want some kind of a magic wand. We want some ability to change the way that things are and to change the kind of life that we have. If we're going to do this, if we're really going to have something magical that can change our life, we have to understand that that reality is within us. It's not something external that creates the change, but the change takes place within ourselves. And by being in the present moment, by being right where you are and I am at every given moment of our life experience, we can learn and experience things that we otherwise could miss. And so really the magic wand, the thing that can change our life the most effectively, is to be in the present moment, to be conscious and to be aware in the present moment. Every religion down through the ages has built upon itself the teaching of creating within people the ability to understand themselves and to connect themselves with that which is divine. In order to do this, we're always called to be in the present moment. And by being in the present moment, we can know and experience and see what is truly real. If you drive your car and drive it out of rote, out of habit, you're aware of how the car functions, aware of the road and where you're to go, you're able to drive while you're thinking about something else. And when you do that, you are not in that present moment. You are in another time and in another place. For most of us, this becomes a way of life. It becomes the way in which we operate most of the time. We're able to go through the processes of life, go through the experiences of life. We're able to drive our cars, go to work, in some cases go to school, talk to friends, experience life, and be absent from the experience itself. We're able to do it because we condition ourselves to be able to respond in a certain way. We respond through physical reflex and through learned knowledge and ability. And that learned knowledge and ability is present in our mind and allows us to operate even when we're not totally and completely conscious of it. And driving is one of the greatest examples. Most of us in our cars are driving down the street in this semi-conscious or unconscious state. And yet there is not chaos. There aren't rampant accidents. But in truth, the people who are behind the wheels of the car are giving only tacit, only temporary, only semi-conscious awareness to that experience of driving. If you and I live our lives in this way, in the dealings with other people, in the experiences that we have, if we appear to be there, if we appear to respond, if we keep ourselves on the track of life, but are not consciously aware and in that present moment, we've missed it. And then, after the experience is long past, we'll be the individual who sits and ponders and looks back upon life and says, where did it go? What happened? Where was I? We were all, and we always are, in the midst of every experience, but we are not always conscious in the midst of every experience. And when we are not conscious in the midst of every experience, we are not living in the now. You know, the now is a wonderful thing. It is a magnificent experience. It is a freeing ability that every one of us have, and that is to be in the present moment, at this present time, in the experience with the people with whom we are living at every moment of life. It's been said that we are always at the midpoint of eternity, and that's certainly true. All of the things of the past and all of the things of the future are things that we remember or things that we anticipate, but the very present moment is the reality. And if eternity is forever, running forever on both sides, every experience and every moment is an eternal now. And in that now, all of the things of the universe take place. And all of those things repeat themselves again and again. And we are challenged to get and to embrace and to join in the experience. You know, as I'm speaking to you at this very moment, as you're listening to me, the universe is taking a breath in unison. Millions of people are doing all of the things that human beings do simultaneously at different places, in different experiences, but it is all taking place in this exact moment. New Thought is built upon fundamental teachings, and the fundamental teachings invite us to live in the now, to claim our oneness with God, and to be in the midst of every single experience as the wonderful and magnificent learning experience that it's meant to be. When I say we should live in the now, I'm not saying that we discount the past or that we have no plan or vision for the future. Those are important issues of life. We need to draw upon the experiences that we've had in the past, learn from those experiences, cherish those memories, and bring with us to this moment in time that which is our past. We also need to be in the process of planning, setting goals, and moving toward the experiences that we choose in our life. But in both of those experiences of the past and the future, we must always be vigilant and cautious not to live in the past or to live in the future, but to visit those two places in our minds, but keeping our place of living, our place of life in this present moment, in this now. We only need to be happy, we only need to be peaceful, we only need to be content, we only need to be loving in this moment. And if we can do those things, if we can be happy and peaceful and content and loving in this moment, then we can be those things in our past and in our future, because our past is made up of this moment, and our future will be made up of the kind of life and the moment and thoughts that we go through. There's a beautiful picture in Scripture that many of us recall and you can remember in your mind's eye, and it's a tremendous picturing of this dynamic truth. And it is the story of the Transfiguration. If you read that story and you see the apparition of Jesus the Christ, and you see that presence as told in the Bible, beside Jesus is Moses and Elijah. Here you have two prophets, and the symbolism is magnificent. You have the divine presence of the Christ, the exemplifier of the perfect and wonderful life, standing in the middle. And to one side is Moses, and to one side is Elijah. Moses representing that which was, the past, and Elijah representing the vision of the future, the prophetic, the prophets of the universe. In our life, we are challenged to see this picture over and over again, and to see this transfiguration, which is a transfiguration that may have taken place in days of old, but more importantly takes place in your life and in my life all of the time. When we're reminded to be in the present moment, and in the present moment to be centered in the divine presence of the living God, and to be that example of the perfect life, and to live that life as it was portrayed and presented to us in the life of Jesus. But also to see in the center of our being this divine presence and reality flanked by the past and the future, supported and strengthened by those wonderful events in life. But the real vision, the real power, and the real freeing grace is to be in the present moment. In your life and in mine, we're faced with many challenges, many obstacles, many opportunities, many sorrows, and many joys. And in the midst of every one of these life experiences, we challenge our way of thinking, our life, and our mind to be in the present moment. Perhaps some of the present moments aren't exactly what you would like. Perhaps some of the experiences that you have are not what you would choose to experience. Perhaps you are not now where you would choose to be, but you are where you are. And if we accept the reality of the present moment, if we accept the reality of the eternal now, the power of that moment gives us strength to deal with that which comes in our lives. And it also gives us the ability to be fully conscious, to be fully aware, so that when we move into the future and when the present becomes our past, we're not shackled with the fear and with the thought that we missed the experience, that we failed to live, that we didn't see the people and the experiences of our life in the way that we would have wanted to. Our challenge is to be in the now, to be in the present moment, to be conscious in every experience. And as we do that, the experiences of life will bring us magnificent and wonderful lessons. So I invite you to examine the way that you think. Examine your process of mind. If you are traveling in mind too often to the past, or if you're traveling too often to the future, or if you're looking for ways to avoid being in the present moment, whether that is through some kind of obsessive or compulsive behavior, whether it's through drugs or alcohol or television or other means of escape. If you are escaping from the present moment, if you're escaping from the now, I invite you to a time and a period of self-examination when you look at your own thought process and your own life and you commit yourself to being in the present, drawing upon simply the past as lessons that they bring and the memories that strengthen us, and the future as a hope of something that is to be. The present moment is the power of life and the power of the now. We'd like to pause at this point in the program and invite you to share with us in a moment of prayer. We believe in prayer as an empowering and strengthening force, and so we invite you to join in this reflection. Eternal and loving God, we gather our hearts and minds together of your divine presence and the wonder and the joy of the eternal now. We commit ourselves to being aware and conscious of this moment and of this experience. Whether it is negative or positive, we embrace it as a life lesson and teaching. And we do this in great faith, hope, and love. Amen.
A wonderful, wonderful reminder, living in the now. That's easier said than done for most of us because we let our minds wander over much.
Mm-hmm. And so often the now or the present moment is a place where we don't want to be. Or perhaps it's a place where we would want to be, but because of the dynamic of our mind, we spend so much time either in the past or in the future or in both, that we've simply conditioned ourselves to miss the conscious awareness of the present moment.
Yes, and it's phrased in a different way with some groups, living time, being in living time, being in vertical time, but it's all the same thing. It's living, as you said, in the now, in the moment.
Yeah, vertical time as a concept is wonderful, and it's something that I think we need to embrace and understand more fully. And so many of us, especially in Western religious traditions, have come to think of life as linear. And so we think of the past and we think of the future and we think of the terrible time that we have in this awful world. And in fact, in New Thought, we believe that the world is a good place, that God created it as good, and that it has been perverted and changed through the process of human life. But at its core, the world is good, the present time is good. And so many times people talk about these times as being so bad, but in fact, they are probably the best of times. And every now in the historical perspective has been the best of times. If we think about the progress of humankind and the improvements of life, the improvements of philosophy and religion, the understanding that we have.
Yes, there was a famous writer who spoke of the best of times and the worst of times in one breath. And that's what we're living in now, because we are going through these mammoth changes. But we knew before we came into this life that we would be experiencing these changes. And it's part of our evolutionary growth pattern. And if we can remember that, then I think we keep a better perspective, because then we don't just say, woe is me, when unexpected things happen. We look to the moment.
Mm-hmm. To the present moment. And that's exactly what was being alluded to in the quotation that you made, at the Tale of Two Cities, because they were the best of times and they were the worst of times. We had everything and we had nothing. And that's true of every period of time. There are those who have everything and there are those who have nothing. There are those who are experiencing the best of life. There are those who are experiencing the worst. And it's not life, but it's us.
Yes.
It's we who are doing it.
Exactly. And I can remember, I think I've mentioned to you once before, perhaps more, at the death of my daughter, Karen Elaine. She died very suddenly, and it was such a devastating shock that it was hard to survive at the moment. And so I knelt at the foot of my bed and said the Lord's Prayer, and it brought through each word and each phrase and each sentence, brought through a vision of delight and joy and promise. And I think I couldn't have managed without that inspiration.
Mm-hmm. And in that process, you were doing what you knew was necessary to change your way of thinking. That could have made, and certainly was, a painful experience, but in the midst of that, through connecting yourself with the power and the presence of God and understanding the spiritual meaning and truth and transcending the death experience, you were able to make the best of times of the worst of times.
To survive. And to survive with the memory, with a lovely memory of that inspiration, which carried me through the hard times ahead. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we all do when and that's part of living in the now. It's taking what's there at the moment and bringing it forth to uplift ourselves or to uplift others, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm. And it's so amazing how many of us avoid the present moment. We spend so much time with the busy thoughts of our minds moving us into the future more often than into the past, although many, many people live in the past. And of course, one of the things that we see as people age and move into the latter part of life, there is a tendency to live in the past and actually to make the past more than it was, but it is to avoid the present moment. And that's a conditioning of thought and a conditioning of mind. And because of that, we have within us this whole idea of the good old days, which probably weren't that good anyway, but they were good at their core. And when we reflect back upon them, we see more positives than we do negatives. And that's part of our normal mental process and the part of who and how and what we are as spiritual beings. That's the power of God teaching us to see the good and to view the good and to embrace the good. But if we don't do that in the conscious moment, we tend to live in that illusionary past, which is not an illusion, but is reality. But we miss the reality of this moment, which is more important.
That's what you just said is so wonderful. And the past is an illusion now because it's past. Mm-hmm. So I know my dad said at age 90, don't let them tell you that the past had the good old days. These days we're living in now are the good old days. Mm-hmm. And I think he learned at that age that the present is the important part, and that's living in the now.
Mm-hmm. The present is the important issue, and living in the now, and going back to the past and going into the future to draw from it what we need. From the past, usually what we can draw most often is strength. And because we can see how we've gone through trials and difficulties and how we've been able to face the adversity and the challenges of life. And looking to the future in a brave way, willing to live because we know that the future way will be open and will be divinely guided and guided.
Yes, I think that's why we have so much this chaos in the world now. The chaos is created by fear of so many people, and so many people are looking to the future with fear instead of living in the now with confidence. Mm-hmm.
And really, when we look at the future and we look at the past, not looking at the technological differences, which are many from a physical standpoint, but as spiritual beings, the past and the future are the same. And they are the same in that they are made up of the present moments of life. And by being in the present, in the now, we can have both a positive future and a positive past and a positive present day.
And when we do that, then we're using the past as a stepping stone and not living in it, but using it to step forward. And there's the difference.
Absolutely. And in counseling with people so often, one of the techniques that I found to be so useful in sharing with people at times when they're trying to overcome great adversity or challenges or difficulties is to draw upon the things that they have endured and overcome and become victorious through in the past. And that becomes a tremendous resource because every one of us have victories in the past.
Yes, well, we couldn't survive if we didn't. So, and that's a very important point to help people see. There's so many steps we can take to help others, but giving them self-confidence is the primary way, and that's what you're just describing.
Right. Self-confidence and self-esteem. And of course, psychologists and sociologists have told us for decades now that the greatest difficulties of the human experience and the greatest challenge that we have from the mental standpoint is our own self-esteem, our own self-image, and the way that we see ourselves. And so much is built, so much of the past has built for so many of us on the negatives of life. You know, one of the things that we say about children is that little children sometimes think their name is no-no because that's the word that's said to them most. That we begin with little innocent children, and as they become thinking, rational beings, and as spirit moves out into the experience of physical life, we so often tell children about their limits. We tell them what they can't do. We tell them what they're not. We tell them that there are different kinds of people, that there are the haves and the have-nots, that there are certain rules and certain outcomes in life, many of which are not true.
That's true. And by saying no to those children, it puts a block in their minds and damages their self-esteem because they don't learn to make their own decisions.
And the decisions that they are able to make are no.
Right.
They're negatives. Yeah. They stop them.
Yes, I've seen that with so many families, and I can think of one family particularly where their mother died when the children were in their early teens, and those children had never been allowed to think for themselves and to make decisions, and it was really chaotic for them because she had made all the decisions all their life, and she had told them what to wear and where to go and what to do and how to act, and it was a very disconcerting life for them for a long time before they learned to think for themselves.
And therein lies the challenge. It is for them to learn to overcome those negative thought processes and those limiting processes and ideas. And that's what New Thought is about. That's what New Thought seeks to do. It seeks to invite people to change their way of thinking about wrong thinking and to get that thinking right in a positive way.
And don't you think that if people have spiritual values, then they're able to live more fully, able to make decisions, and able to fulfill their destiny on the planet because of that very thing?
Yes. Spiritual values and spiritual undergirdings create for us a tremendous means of creating and understanding ourselves as the tremendous and empowered children of God that we are. Unfortunately, so many of us get our spirituality from religion, and so many religions create for us the absolute opposite. They create for us the idea that we're deprived, that we are not equal and not deserving.
That's so true. And then, unfortunately, they teach that other people are not quite up to par, and that's even worse.
Right, and that's the teaching of religion as opposed to the teaching of spirituality. And of course, spiritual teaching should empower us and unify us with God, with the divine, whatever we name it or call it to be. And our religions so often are limiting.
And should unify us with our fellow man to accept everyone at their own merit.
The understanding of other people and the viewing of other people with great esteem.
Yes.
and with great value, to see value in others and to see value in ourselves.
And that's it, to accept them for where they are on the path, regardless of where that is, as being right for that person, and it is right for that person because that's where they are.
Yeah, very important. And so often religion creates for us this right and wrong. Ours is right and yours is wrong. And of course, so many wars and terrible things and atrocities have taken place because of that. But at the core of every religion is the desire to unify its followers with the presence and power of God. And so many times in order to do that, we need to step out of our religion and to step into the spirit, step into spiritual truth.
Yes. Well, that happens in families, on a family level, on a business level, on a religion-oriented level, that if we're trying to put our values into someone else without their accepting, then it's not a happy situation.
And also those values and the tenets and the teachings of our faith need to, as you said, not be exclusive but be inclusive. And so if we have exclusive thoughts, if we think things that are unique to ourselves, we ought not to impose those upon all people.
Yes.
But we need to understand that people are going through and are at their level of understanding and experience. And so every religious tradition has its purpose and its place.
So in a sense, you're saying not only should we be able to live in the now, but allow other people to live in their version of what is now.
Exactly. And their version of now may be considerably, their experience in the now
Right.
is different than ours, but we're all experiencing at the same time. It's just like the statement that I made that all things are going on at the same time.
Yeah.
Everyone is now understanding what they need to understand. There are those who are becoming enlightened and fulfilled and happy and healthy and whole and are claiming that right now in this life. But there are others who are not at that point yet. But by being in the present moment, we're all strengthened to move to the presence of the eternal now and the understanding of who and what we are.
Yes. And to have spiritual values and align ourselves in meditation or in prayer, or preferably both, with divinity helps us to live in the now more fully.
And connecting ourselves with prayer and meditation center us that way.
Right. That does it, and that's the key of having spiritual values enough so that we're self-sufficient and secure in our own knowledge and in our own position
in life.
Yeah.
And Reverend Freelander and I have been sharing with you confident living ideas, and we hope that you found this information to be useful and helpful, and look forward to seeing you next time.